Okay, this is Dumpster Truffles, Carmen Morrison, Poppy Max, broadcasting around the world and across the galaxy. Literally. Thank you all for gathering here. Good morning, everybody. How we doing? You are now rocking with the best. Tonight's show, we've got 3 slots lined up, and so we've got 3 slots lined up, and after that, we'll see what happens after the 3rd slot. But we start off with Carmen's devotion, as always. That keeps us level-headed, keeps our feet on the ground, keeps us moving forward. It keeps God in our hearts. So that's a very important thing. And then we have Poppy Max, who's got Patrick Gunnell's vids for us. And he's also got a few other bits and pieces that he'd like to share with you, such as the One Day at a Time section from his book. And so wherever you are and whatever you find yourself doing, I'm so glad that you could make it here to this little show. It's early morning in America. It's about lunchtime in Europe, and it's just gone after 8 o'clock in the PM in my own country of Australia. So let's rock and roll. Carmen, are you ready with the devotional?
Yes, I am. Good morning, everybody. Now, I have gone over this one before, but with everything that has been going on and the way that the ones who are doing this are trying to turn everybody against each other, I felt like it was important to remember that other people are not our enemy. They're not our foe. This is spiritual warfare. So from Ephesians chapter 6, verses 10 through 18. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Therefore, put on the full armor of God so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground. And after you have done everything, to stand. Stand firm then, with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. In addition to all this, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God, and pray in the Spirit on all occasions, with all kinds of prayers and requests. With this in mind, be alert and always keep on praying for all the Lord's people. What is the full armor of God? First, we had the belt of truth. When we have girded our loins or secured our inner being with truth, the enemy has a harder time striking where we would be vulnerable. We know truth, and it strengthens our backbone for the battle that's coming. The breastplate of righteousness. When we follow truth into righteousness, knowing that we've done what is right in the eyes of the Lord, will put a protection over our hearts and strengthen us with more courage to stand. You make a right decision.
Oh, you cut out there, Carmen.
Can you hear me?
We can now, yes.
Okay, hold on. Because I wrote this down in paper here. Okay, when you make a right decision, it gives you confidence to make even more good decisions in this journey we call life. Then you have your shoes. Your shoes are the gospel of peace. The gospel means good news. Jesus is peace. Peace means oneness or wholeness in Greek. So basically, our good news in being whole through Jesus is what gives our feet the ability to stand firm in adversity. Then we have the shield of faith. A shield was used in battle to deflect enemy arrows. This one is made of faith, total trust in the Lord. That faith comes by hearing the Word of God and applying it. We can't be just hearers of the Word. We must be doers also. Then you have the helmet of salvation. Our minds are the greatest battle.
You cut out again, Carmen.
I'm sorry, I'm having a lot of trouble with this. Our minds are the greatest battlefield. To keep the enemy out of our thought processes, we have to cover our minds with the continuing work of salvation in our lives. You've got to do this every day. It's not a one-time and done kind of thing. Hold on just a minute, because I've got the rest on the back of the paper, and I don't know if you'll lose me again or not. Hang on.
Gotcha.
Okay. Then we come to the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God. That kind of, is self-explanatory. The Word of God is our sword. It's the sword we carry, whether in doubt or in temptation or in battle. Everything we need at hand to fight with is found in the Word of God. The exact same words that Jesus used against Satan. Plus, we also have the New Testament, where we have Jesus' own words. And then finally, we are to pray always. So with that said, Father, here we are again, thanking you for another beautiful day and everything you have provided us with. Thank you for the truth we find in your word that leads us to search for truth in our daily lives. We ask a special blessing on our president, his family, and everyone who is fighting to make our world a better place. Lord, especially keep your hand on our military members. I'm sure it's not easy on them either. And the police officers, Lord, there's so much going on there, and we need intervention. We ask for healing and restoration for the people of every nation. We're all your children. Bless the rest of this broadcast and help us to retain the information we'll need moving forward. Thank you most of all for your Son, Jesus, in whose name we pray. Amen.
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 Okay, thank you for that, Carmen. It's not often you can get straightforward, practical information from the Bible, and that's why I love Ephesians. It's practical information, and it's all about strength through faith. Faith makes us stronger. Faith makes us more effective.
Well, the Bible even says that without faith, there's no way we could even begin to please God.
Yeah, yep.
We have to have faith. Yeah, we've got to have faith.
Oh, okay. Karen Cook, how you doing? Bindi Man? Bindi Man said he heard my voice on Carolyn Stevens' show last night. I don't even know who Carolyn Stevens is. But we got Storm, Technic 888. He also says amen. So there are many people that are very thankful for your ministering, Carmen.
I just appreciate y'all listening. It's important to share truth and know truth.
Okay, would you like to add anything else to the devotional?
I believe that was about it. I'm just very concerned about everything that's happening in our country right now and around the world.
It's unbelievable what's happening in America at the moment. And there might be a little bit of information about it from Puppy Max, but I've decided to ignore the whole situation. Well, not the whole situation, but obviously I'm not going to focus on the details of what's going on in the fine country of America at the moment. I'm sure that you get enough information about that. Instead, I'm going to be talking this evening about Crossfire Hurricane, the inception of the Crossfire Hurricane, the Australian connection, and then I'll bring it home with a broader context for the world and so forth, all to do with the indictments that AG Barr is issuing. And but next slot goes to Puppy Max. Puppy, you want to point me in the right direction there, mate?
Good day, world. Have a good one. Yeah, I have several reads from Patrick Gunnels and some other articles and some reads myself. Okay, if you go to my Puppy's Notables, you go to the first Patrick Permanent Permission. So you scroll from the bottom up.
Hang on, what room am I looking for again?
Notables.
I cannot actually find Puppy's Notables in the list.
It is there. I'm there.
It's the sixth one above general text.
Unfortunately, I cannot actually find that. What have I missed here?
Hold on, I'll go to his room and tag you in.
Okay.
Oh, hang on, I found it. Sorry about that. Stand down, Carmen. Sorry, guys.
He just woke up. He just woke up.
Okay, so we'll start with Patrick's Permanent Permission. Is that where you want me to start?
Yeah. That's, you go to the bottom, you get the articles first, and then you see the first permanent permission of Patrick. You put that on screen and read it. And then after that, above that, you see a video, and it's called, this is a funny one, 11 minutes. It's called Takedown of White Fragility.
Okay.
Play that after.
I'll just read Patrick's permission, and then we'll play the comedy one just above it. Is that how you want me to proceed?
Please.
Okay, this comes from Dutch Truth Seeker, who sends a message to Patrick Gunnels. I know you said I don't need your permission, but I have to, otherwise I won't be able to play this in Friday's live show. So here goes. Do I have your permission to play this read in coming Friday's live show on Dumpster Truffle's YouTube channel? And Patrick Gunnels responds with yes, and you have my permission to play anything I ever do, anywhere you like.
Well, listeners, Patrick was supposed to be a guest today. He had problems with Discord. and he decided to leave it and wait a while and maybe come next week or next month. But he'll probably be on the show. Oh,
Beautiful. I look forward to that because he's a hell of a guy and he has a way of phrasing things and explaining things that makes a lot of sense. Okay, should I play the Coswader praises Karlin Borisenko's takedown of White Fragility? Are we rolling with the video, puppy?
please.
Okay, I'll let you know when I'll ask you to maintain radio silence. You won't actually be able to see the video being played unless you're watching this through YouTube at the moment. But here we go. Reading epic threads. And this is
thread
about
by
11
Carlos
minutes.
Oswita. Carlos responds to a video by Dr. Karlin Borisenko. Dear white people, no, you are not inherently racist. Carlos responds, Dr. Karlin Borisenko hits it out of the park again. I had this conversation with my brother, but he wants people to torch the accusers. My own viewpoint is that the crazier this gets, the better it is for Donald Trump. Now, I'm not a mental health professional, but I have a good 20 years of curmudgeonhood on Dr. Karlin. She's concerned about the well-being of all people, while I myself care only about people of goodwill. So she's a better person than me. I can live with that. This is the book everyone is talking about. White Fragility, Why It's So Hard for White People to Talk About Racism by Robin DiAngelo. I hadn't heard of it until I watched Dr. Karlin's video. Robin DiAngelo protects her account, which makes her pretty fragile herself. On social media, I experienced multiple brigadings, as all the cool kids call it this week. I can't even remember how many groups came after me. Jew haters, Nazis, atheists, anime pud pullers are the only ones that stick in my mind. It didn't bother me in the least. There's a guy whose name I won't use because there are many others with the same name, but he was an Irish psychiatrist. I confirmed that. Oh, let's check out the Irish psychiatrist. Okay. First, he mocked me for my PTSD, and then he mocked me for my parents' suicides in 2013. They denied their advanced cancer, refused to cooperate in their treatment, changed their minds at the last second, and went out in total terror, screaming and thrashing. 6 months apart. It was a hell of a year. I also have Meniere's disease, an incurable affliction exacerbated by stress. So, I was having rotational vertigo attacks and projectile vomiting when I wasn't physically wrestling my parents and having the worst nightmares of my life. And a con artist who I'd hired to publicize my book used his George Zimmer voice to make me confide in him. He researched mental illness and Meniere's disease and figured out exactly how to double bill me. The brain fog made me a sitting duck. So, when it was over, both my parents were dead, my book was dead, my career was stillborn, and I was out a huge sum of money. But something happened. I was at least 5 million times stronger than before. Nothing could hurt me. The Irish psychiatrist was like a bad joke. How's your father? Yes, still dead? No, he recovered. We're having dinner tonight, I responded. He had no response. Then, lend us a shovel. I want to go dig up your father. Dad and I will help, I answered. Now, this guy has a second home in Indonesia. He posted very disturbing images of little girls in provocative poses. Got a little secret? I asked. Guys like you always play chicken with the cops. What would the Irish police think about these photos? Or the London police? Yes, I know where you live in London. I posted his street name, and he blocked me. I suppose most people haven't had horrible lives. To survive a horrible life, you have to be really, really strong. When I say horrible, I mean in the sense of knowing what human eyeball juice tastes like after it sprays into your mouth because of a close-range gunshot. I didn't fire the gun. I was 4 years old. But things never really improved since then. I didn't even know I had PTSD. One day, my resting pulse rate went up to 220 beats per minute. I could feel my pulse in my fingertips and ankles. I stopped drinking and drugging when I was 29, and this happened when I was 44. I went to a cardiologist who gave me every test known to science. He finally suggested psychotropics. I'd never thought about them, but I agreed. After he put me on 2, he said it was time for me to see a psychiatrist. He said that I had the worst PTSD he'd seen in his entire career. Absolutely everything I thought was normal was so abnormal that he couldn't believe I wasn't a criminal. It took 2 years to find the right cocktail, but he also said that I had the strongest will to live that he'd ever seen. That's true. I always felt that maybe, just maybe, I'd achieve peace of mind. And I have. It took agonizing self-examination. I wouldn't actually recommend that people undergo the sort of detective work I did. It leaves you absolutely alone in the world. But solitude is total freedom, and it's a massive source of strength. I understand today's white people not understanding what's going on. Just take solace in the fact that this has all been tried before and it always fails. For now, go along with it and preserve your job. A great piece was written years ago about the current mindset. Australia gets drunk, wakes up in North Atlantic. Tired of being isolated and ignored, continent isn't bloody moving. After an all-night bender during which it kept droning on about how it was always being bloody ignored by the whole bloody world and would bloody well stand to do something about it, Australia this morning woke up to find itself in the middle of the North Atlantic. Good Lord, that was a booze up, said a bleary-eyed Australian Prime Minister, John Howard, speaking from his residence at Kirribilli House, approximately 600 nautical miles east of Cape Hatteras, North Carolina. According to Australians and residents of several countries destroyed or lewdly insulted during the continent's nearly 7,000-mile saltwater stagger, the binge began just after noon yesterday at a pub in Brisbane. Recalled witness Kevin Porter. This bloke Martin comes up and says Australia's main problem is that it's stuck in Australia, and everybody says too right. Well, it made sense at the time, Porter added. By 2 a.m., powered by national pride and alcohol, the 3 million square mile landmass was barging eastward through the Coral Sea and crossing into the Central Pacific, leaving a trail of beer cans and Chinese takeaway in its wake. When dawn broke over the northern hemisphere, the continent suddenly found itself not only upside down, but smack in the middle of the Atlantic. And according to most of its 19 million inhabitants, that's the way it's going to stay. We sent troops to Afghanistan. You never hear about it. We have huge government scandals. You never hear about it. It's all America did this and Europe says that, exclaimed Perth resident Paul Watson. Well, we're right in the thick of things now, so let's just see if you can ignore us. Officials on both sides of the Atlantic conceded that it would be difficult. They broke Florida, said U.S. State Department spokesman Richard Boucher. Most of Latin America is missing. It's from satirewire.com, link in the description. I would add 2 final thoughts. Want to talk about fragile? Try and bring up the killing field of Chicago to Don Lemon, to any black leftist for that matter. Watch the hysteria. Today, Trump had another roundtable meeting with black leaders, his second in 2 days. You can watch them on the White House's YouTube channel. This is why I tell people that the longer the madness goes on, the better it is for Trump. At these roundtables, you can learn a lot. For example, the most disadvantaged black communities are in blue states. Most of the funds went through Democratic politicians. You'll never guess what they did. They blocked funding for black entrepreneurs and diverted the money to white developers, gentrifying the communities for white people. Imagine that. So, Trump changed the rules. Now the money goes directly to black-owned banks and lending organizations, bypassing racist Democrats and their obsession with enslaving black people. 2 more things I learned. A black activist told Trump he was the first Republican the man ever voted for, and he said Trump hasn't failed him. He works entirely with prisoners to help them return to society. When he meets his new classes, he asks the question, how many of you are getting out because of Trump's First Step Act? Without fail, 100% of each class raises their hands. Final thing. Trump authorized a program in which the police mentor inmates about to be released. The police learn from the inmates how to be better cops, and with a cop as a mentor, every single one of these people gets jobs when they get out. Even police chiefs are participating. The press won't cover it, but that doesn't matter. At these two roundtables, they all said the same thing. You are the best president black people have ever had. We're going to make it. Final thought. The mass insanity we're seeing is nothing. How about the dancing mania that periodically broke out in Europe for no reason? People danced until they died. The Children's Crusade. Religious leaders riled up people to send their unarmed kids to the Middle East in huge crowds where they all died of disease or were sold into sexual slavery. The Salem witch trials. The American 19th century flying machine sightings. No, they weren't UFOs. They were bizarre contraptions with no visible means of propulsion, with balconies full of people dressed in contemporary clothing, waving and laughing. This was long before rigid airships, dirigibles, had ever flown. Mass hysteria is real. But if you don't let it infect you, everything will be fine. Humor the nutters. Don't get fired for making a principled stand. This is backfiring for Democrats. They own this. Black Lives Matters and Antifa are the old guard, the most fanatical of the foot soldiers. Trump is beaten. He's bled to death. Now, the old guard forward, then on to Brussels. The end.
Oh, Puppy Max, that was actually pretty special. He explains the insanity of what's going on in America at the moment. That's absolutely mental. That was some of the best analysis I've heard yet. Thank you, Puppy.
You're welcome. I thought it was funny and good at the same time.
It was funny, but it was very edgy, hard-edged humor. There was laconic humor.
Right. And the next one, so you have to post another mission picture. You don't have to read it. Up for like 10 seconds. And then the next read I'd like you to play is 4.5 minutes long, and it's about Democrats have become real-life absurdists.
You got it.
It connects to the previous one.
Beautiful. He's wearing the T-shirt that says "Beast." Is that the one? Okay, I'm starting the video now. I'll let you know when the video's over.
A thread by Carlos Osuita. 3 points. Donald Trump will be easily reelected. Trump totally controls the press. Don't ever tell me again to not get complacent. The number of people requesting tickets is approaching the crowd size for both of Obama's inaugurations, and this is just a rally 5 months out from the election. And, of course, after telling everyone to ignore social distancing during the 3 weeks of protesting, now the press and Democrats accuse Trump of endangering the entire country because he won't have social distancing at his rallies. My favorite type of humor is absurdist. Will Sasso is my favorite absurdist. This is what Trump has made the press and the Democrats do. Link in the description. Will Sasso as Jesse Ventura. The Vietnam War never started. What do you mean that the Vietnam War never started? I never said that. The 180-degree turns are coming so fast that everyone is just laughing. Robert Wool is the toady on the left, another great absurdist. He's going to change everything. Don't change anything. He touches one thing, he's gone. You can't parody the Democrats and the press. They've become absurdist art. I love absurdist art, but not in politics. Absurdism is a commentary on real-life absurdism. The very fact that nothing's happened is an ominous development. That's a real-life paraphrase. Now, the problem with absurdism is that you have to mix it in with realism. The movie Catch-22 ultimately fails, despite its brilliance, because nobody in the film is normal or relatable. It's too much absurdism. You get exhausted. It's the same as the cartoon movie The Phantom Tollbooth. The only feature-length absurdist film that works is the criminally insulted Monkees movie Head. The reason it works is that the four monkeys are trapped, the Monkees the band, like we are, in a hurricane, tsunami, tornado, earthquake of absurdism, but they never give up. Even though each of them is periodically infected, they recover. And the absurdism is not horribly sinister. They learn that laughing at it all renders a lot of it impotent. We feel like them. Catch-22 is a grim view of a dystopian world, while Head is ultimately hopeful in that absurdism isn't universal. All along the way, the monkeys are helped. Have you seen Biden's short list for a running mate? Kamala Harris, Susan Rice, Florida Representative Val Demings, Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, Elizabeth Warren, New Mexico Governor Michelle Lewin Grisham, Susan Rice, Benghazi, Elizabeth Warren, both progressives and moderates hate her. All the others have massive issues with police brutality. And Biden is infamous for the crime bill that made Trump take action to free black people imprisoned for trivial crimes. Total absurdist comedy. When Val Demings was chief of the Orlando Police Department, everything that could go wrong did go wrong. At this moment in time, the Democrats are choosing people who will alienate the entire country, while Trump has 1 million people clamoring for 13,000 seats. And the press is saying the Vietnam War never started. The Vietnam War was started by chimps. You can't make this up. All my brother's blue-collar Democrat friends in Las Vegas are voting for Trump. All they talk about is how crazy the Democrats are, how much they hate the Democrats. As I said before, this is 2016 again, on steroids. All is well.
That was absolutely hilarious. Unbelievable. The Democratic Party is tragically absurd. That was excellent. Thank you, Puppy.
You're welcome. All right, I want to take a pause from Patrick because I have two more. In between, I want to read something about articles that I found. And the first one is it's right at the bottom. It's just below just above the ETs on FRBs. That's I'm gonna read that because that's all scientific. I'm gonna read this one. Maybe someone can drop the link into YouTube. It is from the University of Nottingham, and the byline is Jane Icke. I wonder if she is related to David Icke. It's from Monday to June 15th this year. And the article says, research shed new light on intelligent life existing across the galaxy. There. This is an age-old question that researchers have now shed new light on with a study that calculates there could be more than 30 intelligent civilizations throughout our galaxy. Well, my comment to that is just 30, more than 30. I think you have to add like a couple of zeros to that. I'm sure about that. Okay, let me continue. This is enormous advance over previous estimates which spanned from 0 to billions. One of the biggest and longest standing questions in the history of human thought is whether there are intelligent life forms within our universe. Obtaining good estimates of the number of possible extraterrestrial civilizations has, however, been very challenging. No wonder, yeah. Maybe we're doing it all the wrong way. A new study led by the University of Nottingham and published today in the Astrophysical Journal has taken a new approach to this problem. Using the assumption that intelligent life forms on other planets in a similar way as it does on Earth, researchers have obtained an estimate for the number of intelligent communication civilizations within our own galaxy, the Milky Way. They calculate that there could be over 30 active communicating intelligent civilizations in our home galaxy. Professor of Astrophysics at the University of Nottingham, Christopher Gonzalez, who led the research, explains, there should be at least a few dozen active civilizations in our galaxy under the assumption that it takes 5 billion years for intelligent life to form on the planets, as on Earth. Gonzalez also explains that the idea is looking at evolution, but on a cosmic scale. We call this calculation the astrobiological Copernican limit, ACP. Tom Westby explains, the classic method for estimating the number of intelligent civilizations relies on making guesses of values relating to life, whereby opinions about such matters vary quite substantially. Our new study simplifies these assumptions using new data, giving a solid estimate of the number of civilizations in our galaxy. The two astrobiological Copernican limits are that intelligent life forms in less than 5 billion years or after about 5 billion years, similar to on Earth, where a communicating civilization formed after 4.5 billion years. In the strong criteria whereby a metal content equal to that of the sun is needed, the sun is relatively speaking quite metal rich. We calculate that there should be around 36 active civilizations in our galaxy. The research shows that the number of civilizations depends strongly on how long they are actively sending out signals of their existence into space, such as radio transmissions from satellites, televisions, etc. If other technological civilizations last as long as ours, which is currently 100 years old, then there will be around 36 ongoing intelligent technical civilizations throughout our galaxy. However, the average distance to these civilizations would be 17,000 light years away, making detection and communication very difficult with our present technology. It is also possible that we are the only civilization within our galaxy, unless the survival times of civilizations like our own are long. And then Professor Christopher Gonzalez closes with a remark. Our new research suggests that searches for extraterrestrial intelligent civilizations not only reveals the existence of how life forms, but also gives us clues for how long our own civilization will last. If we find that intelligent life is common, then this would reveal that our civilization could exist much longer than a few hundred years. Alternatively, if we find that there are no active civilizations in our galaxy, it is a bad sign for our own long-term existence. By searching for extraterrestrial intelligent life, even if we find nothing, we are discovering our own future and fate. Well, I don't agree with that. But it's an interesting article about life out there. I wonder if there is any comments or questions about that.
Mate, I've got a million. You ready?
Ah,
Okay, so basically the number 30 is just a guess. There's no actual way to know how many intelligent races there are. So 30 would be a lowball figure. I would guess probably 1,500 or more, based on the fact that there are people who have reported from the Secret Space Program, and Corey Goode and David Wilcock and the rest of them. They reckon that there are 1,500 different species, which means 1,500 different civilizations. But it gets even more complicated, because a Stone Age civilization would not be detectable, and advanced civilizations will actually transcend their physical form once they hit a certain point. So an intelligent civilization is going to last for a few hundred years, probably, maybe a few thousand years, which is tiny in astronomical time. So there might be 30 active civilizations that are in the phase that we are in now, in between Stone Age and transcension of our physical form. And I think we're sort of getting to that point now in human history.
Indeed. You know, when I was reading the books from
You cut off there, puppy.
Here, you can hear me?
Loud and clear now.
I was reading the books from Courtney Brown about remote viewing since 1993. He had like remote viewing contact with at least 2 species, but he also said there is a subspace universe where after we die we transition to that subspace. We don't, we leave our physical body and our ghosts. But you either come back when you have not done or learned what you were supposed to learn, and then when you have, you transition to a higher level of existence, which is in subspace. And those civilizations, they cannot detect, those scientists cannot detect those civilizations. Many of them.
Yeah, that's what I was alluding to there. Only a civilization at the stage that we are at now would be detectable by another species. If we were Stone Age, we don't have any contact with the rest of the galaxy. At a certain point, our technology will mean that we will transcend physical form, or there'll be some sort of process in the civilization where they will stop interacting with civilizations like ours. So there's probably only going to be, I think 30 sounds like a fairly accurate number for the number of civilizations that are at the same point we are at, or a similar point that we are at. But ultimately, I think that the galaxy has seen many, many, many intelligent beings. I mean, if you look at it like this, it's taken 265,000 years for humanity to become human. And that's on a planet that was 4.2 billion years old, which means that there's 4 billion years that civilizations could have rose and fall across the galaxy. So we're not looking at a teeming galaxy. There won't be millions and millions of different alien species, but there will be millions of civilizations that have nothing to do with lesser races like us.
Indeed. And our Milky Way being so big, and not even one of the biggest, it's like 100 or 150,000 light years across, with an estimate of anywhere between 300 and 500 billion stars with, according to planets, my thought is that there is a way more intelligent life than 1,500 civilizations.
It's intriguing to think, isn't it? We're living. I mean, yeah. And I'll take this moment now. Tune in to Patriot News tomorrow on Saturday. Sometime Saturday there will be a presentation by a couple of Anons I did a dig with. So I'll say that again at the other end of the show. But tune in to Patriot News on Saturday to hear the results of an absolutely epic dig that I was so happy to be a part of.
All right. Well, I need to check that out. And you will need to, when it's on, you'll need to give me a sign.
Absolutely. I'll DM you that information as soon as I get it. And the same goes to Carmen, Oz, and Mark.
All right. My next article, or did you have more questions or remarks?
I could talk about this all day. What do we mean by intelligence? What tricks has evolution played on other species? What happens if civilizations transcend? But what if those civilizations that transcend leave behind automated systems, robots basically? We might look at civilizations that exist in our galaxy that no longer have any biological organisms at all. They will have given birth essentially to robots. So we might be looking at a situation where there are only 30 species that are in our that are at our point of development, but there might be, hundreds of thousands of civilizations across the galaxy that are simply nothing more than an automated facility in space.
Indeed. In David, in Courtney Brown's book, The Cosmic Exploration, said that he had discovered something, and he refused to believe it, but he had to acknowledge it, that humanity will not stay here on Earth. Humanity will, like birds that leave a nest, will leave Earth as the birthing place, and they will, populate the galaxy and the universe, and they will, transcend into a higher dimension. So, just amazing.
And more to the point, I think transcension goes hand in hand with the awakening and all the stuff that's going on Earth at the moment. We are at the point where we have a brief window where we'll be a spacefaring technical civilization, and the transcension that I was talking about, transcending what we are at the moment, that won't actually happen for another few hundred years, I would imagine. So the lifespan of a civilization that can be detected by another civilization is probably less than 10,000 years. Definitely less than 10,000 years. So it would be my guess that it's a very crowded universe, very crowded.
It is indeed. It is indeed. Well, my next article, kind of, not exactly, but it's interesting as well. It's an article from the Daily Galaxy, and it's from June 13th, and I cannot find the byline. And it says, alien structures discovered deep inside Earth that had a moon. But we have time. We have time. Scientists using a machine learning algorithm that was originally developed to analyze remote galaxies to probe 30 years of earthquake data have discovered vast structures composed of exotic materials occupying the boundary between Earth's liquid outer core and the lower mantle zone, some 3,000 kilometers, almost 1,900 miles beneath our feet, that date back to a time before Earth had a moon. These massive anomalous objects could be partially melted material that predated the formation of the moon from a colossal collision between early Earth and a Mars-sized object more than 4 billion years ago. Scientists led by Dion Kim, a seismologist and visiting scientist at Cornell University, fed seismograms captured from hundreds of earthquakes that occurred between 1990 and 2018 into an algorithm called Sequencer. Then, to analyze thousands of recordings of seismic waves to identify echoes from the boundary between Earth's molten core and the solid mantle layer above it. These seismic waves, each with a magnitude of at least 6.5, that shook the subterranean world under the Pacific Ocean within the past 3 decades, are warped patterns are captured in seismograms, recordings, and wave activity inside Earth, enabling seismologists to capture rare glimpses of Earth's deep, inaccessible underworld. The researchers' analysis, published in Science, revealed a previously unknown structure beneath the volcanic Marquesas Islands in the South Pacific, and showed that the structure beneath the Hawaiian Islands is much larger than previously known. Sequencer reveals an alien underworld. By looking at thousands of core mantle boundary echoes at once, instead of focusing on a few at a time, as is usually done, we have gotten a totally new perspective, said Kim, lead author of the paper. This is showing us that the core mantle boundary region has lots of structures that can produce these echoes. And that was something we didn't realize before because we only had a narrow view. Seismograms unveiled previous unknown structures. Earthquakes generate seismic waves below Earth's surface that travel thousands of miles. When the waves encounter changes in the rock density, temperature, or composition, they change speed, bend, or scatter, producing echoes that can be detected. Echoes from structures nearby arrive more quickly, while those from larger structures are louder. By measuring the travel time and amplitude of these echoes as they arrive at seismometers in different locations, scientists can develop models of the physical properties of the rock hidden below the surfaces. This process is similar to the way bats echolocate to map their environment. Using a machine learning algorithm called Sequencer, the researchers analyzed 7,000 seismograms from hundreds of earthquakes of 6.5 magnitude and greater occurring around the Pacific Ocean basin from 1990 to 2018. Sequencer was developed by the New Studies co-author from Johns Hopkins University and Tel Aviv University. You find patterns in radiation from distant stars and galaxies. When applied to seismograms from earthquakes, the algorithm discovered a large number of shear wave echoes. Machine learning in Earth science is growing rapidly, and a method like Sequencer allows us to be able to systematically detect seismic echoes and get new insight into the structures at the base of the mantle, which have remained largely enigmatic, Kim said. Interesting.
Was that the end of the
4
article?
billion. No, it's not quite the end of the article, but it's
I'm listening intently, that's for sure. This is interesting.
there's a bit more. Let me see. I need to go. Echoes on about 40% of all seismic wave paths, said Vedran Lecic, an associate professor of geology at UMD and the co-author of the study. That was surprising because we were expecting them to be more rare, and what that means is the anomalous structures at the core mantle boundary are much more widespread than previously thought. The scientists found that the large path of very dense hot material at the core mantle boundary beneath Hawaii produced uniquely loud echoes, indicating that it is even larger than the previous estimates. Known as ultra-low velocity zones, ULVZs, such patches are found at the roots of volcanic plumes, where hot rock rises from the core mantle boundary region to produce volcanic islands. The ULVZ beneath Hawaii is the largest known. We were surprised to find such a big feature beneath the Marquez Islands that we didn't even know existed before, Lecic said. This is really exciting because it shows how the sequencer algorithm can help us to extensualize seismogram data across the globe in a way we couldn't before. That's it. The source is sequencing seismograms. Hold on, is there more? No, there's not more. That's it.
That was absolutely gobsmacking. So we've got the mantle, and then we've got the core, and in between it we've got a layer that's a few thousand kilometers thick. And and as earthquakes move through the different strata, the mantle, the structures in between the mantle and the core itself, the actual passage of the earthquake through these structures shows us that these structures exist beneath the mantle. Is this true?
It's true, and there is an image of it, how big it is, and it looks like as big as the whole European and Russian, whole of Europe and Russia. And if you put it upside down, it looks as big as Africa, the whole continent of Africa.
Yeah, I was a bit fuzzy on what the actual effect of these structures are. Do they do anything? Is there...
There was no specific mention of what they're doing. There's a study this, they have to study this because it will give them a lot more insight in how work, but also about our own planet.
And not just our planet, you were talking about the same effect being shown in exoplanets, alien planets, alien worlds.
In finding alien worlds. So it's connected to the previous article, kinda, sorta.
Beautiful. I'd just like to make an announcement to everyone out in YouTube. Rochelle Patutzis is setting up her own YouTube channel. She's going to have that ready by midweek, she says, and I'll give it a plug next show. So always happy to give a hand up to other Anons in the same basket. You can get ahead two ways. You can pull people down and get above them, or you can help people up and support one another. So next week, Rochelle will have a functioning YouTube channel, and I'll give it a decent plug then.
Good. Congratulations, Rochelle.
I'll tune in and have a look and see how it's going. So you got my vote, and you've got this platform to promote your platform. We're just little tiny fish at the moment, or at least I am. Rochelle might get millions of followers. I don't know.
Like young guppies.
And a million young guppies will eat a shark.
Yeah, they will.
Mm.
All right, let's want to continue.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I think I'm gonna continue with Patrick's next video, which is about Trump and scaring the Russians. It's right above article. It's right above previous video of Patrick.
Is this Cosweda, the story of how Trump handed the Russians?
Yes, please, yes. But first, the permission first for a couple of seconds, and then the video.
Gotcha. Okay, that's the permissions out of the way. I'm going to play this Epic Threads again. And so radio silence until the video is over. It's only 5 minutes.
A thread by Carlos Osweda for sweet mommy Camila, who follows me. First, she wrote this word salad. No way! America is awakened and united against one of the two fascist, racist, demented pedophiles running for POTUS. The Trump fiasco will be over soon. Harmless Patsy replied. The irony of the Trump is a fascist narrative. If Trump was a fascist, he would lock them up. Their statement proves itself to be false. Camila punched back with one heck of a rebuttal. A weak fascist, the first in human history. So I asked a question that I knew would elicit no response. Tell everyone here what the weak Trump did to the Russians at Deir ez-Zor, Syria, on February 7th, 2018. Don't scamper away now, strong, brave lady. I expect an answer. And then Nicole P. nailed it. So, to educate all the leftists reading this on February 7th, 2018, Trump authorized the total destruction of a 600-man Russian Mobile Detachment Combat Group, MDCG, at Deir ez-Zor, Syria, when it attacked about 40 American special operators. An MDGC is comprised of 3 motorized rifle companies. They travel in BMP infantry fighting vehicles. This is the headquarters and 1 platoon. There were 11 infantry fighting vehicles, 10 main battle tanks, 6 122mm self-propelled howitzers, 8 82mm mortars, 8 120mm anti-tank guns, 6 AGS-17 automatic grenade launchers, 6 RPO thermobaric rocket launchers, which the Russians call flame projectors, and 6 NSV heavy machine guns. The MDCG suffered 100% casualties. Every single man was killed or wounded. The funerals lasted for weeks. Of all the vehicles, 1 BMP and 1 tank survived. An entire motorized rifle company died instantly. The Yankees knew we were coming, this same man said. They sent their message. In other words, Trump set up Putin. The Russians were trying to take oil fields. They had neither air power nor air defenses, and we allowed them to attack for 3 hours before responding. Our men spoke to the Russian commanders on the de-escalation line several times. Nothing we can do, the Russians said. These are mercenaries. Not our problem. When the response came and the entire MDGC began to be methodically destroyed, the Russians called back, screaming, "Stop, stop, stop!" No, they're mercenaries not under your control, remember? You had your chance, we said. The MDGC was totally obliterated. Putin began withdrawing his troops from Syria, and the only Russians left are military police. They have no heavy weapons. Putin tested Trump, and he lived to regret it. Trump knew the test was coming, so he set up Vlad. This was the worst military defeat that the U.S. ever inflicted on Russia in our entire history. Weak Trump did it, the Russian stooge. Still reading, Sweet Mommy Camila? Explain away, Dair Azor. I'll guess what you'll say. Trump and Putin arranged it together. Absolutely. Trump gave up all his influence in Syria because something benefited him. All of Russia now knows that Trump kicked Putin's ass. And this benefits him by making him appear to no match for the U.S., right? It never happened. Of course, all the angry Russians who had funerals for their dead sons were actors. And the American press is helping Trump by lying about Russia and Syria for years. Even before Trump was inaugurated, the press was helping him. From Reuters.com, Ghost Soldiers, the Russians secretly dying for the Kremlin in Syria. Anything else? Hello? Scamper, scamper, scamper. Not the big, strong, brave lady you pretend to be, I see. Trump 2020 landslide.
Okie dokes. That was excellent. Trump 2020 landslide. Awesome.
Right, indeed. Well, the last one of his videos is 10.5 minutes. I have to warn the people, he is reading. What Patrick does is he reads tweets that's on Twitter from people, and he uses the emotion of the writer when he wrote it, and he's very good at it. And with this one, he gets very emotional. It's a pity you can't. He's not using full screen. You listen to his voice. Again, just first the permanent permission picture for a few seconds, and then the video called "The Left Are Now Stone Age Savages."
Gotcha. I'm looking for the article now. Okay, Coswader, the left are now Stone Age savages to stop blah blah blah. Is that the one? Okay, radio silence please guys. I'll let you know when the video's finished playing.
A thread by Carlos Osuita. See? Don't take your guns to protests. Leftists will attack you anyway, and then you get arrested. From the Daily Mail, former city council candidate shot New Mexico protester. And of course, there's his mugshot. Carlos continues, the New Mexico Civil Guard accomplished nothing. These protesters are on another planet. The cops did nothing to protect the statue. So unless you're willing to ruin your life, don't go to protests with guns. After the guy drew his gun, they attacked him. When he tried to flee, they chased him and knocked him down. Can you finally get it through your heads that this is just a phase? And when you were shooting insane people over statues of conquistadors, and now the cops and governor are blaming the guy who got chased, knocked down, and beaten. From the article, in a statement posted on Twitter, Albuquerque Police Chief Michael Geyer said investigators had received reports about vigilante groups possibly instigating this violence. If this is true, we will be holding them accountable to the fullest extent of the law, including federal hate group designation and prosecution, Geyer said. The shooting tonight was a tragic, outrageous, and unacceptable act of violence, and it has no place in our city. Mayor Tim Keller said in a statement, "Our diverse community will not be deterred by acts meant to divide or silence us. Our hearts go out to the victim, his family, and witnesses whose lives were needlessly threatened tonight. This sculpture has now become an urgent matter of public safety." You must accept this. Democrats are insane. So, confronting them with guns will only ruin your life. We have to let the inevitable happen. Cops are quitting in massive numbers, so blue states are getting what they want. Let them have it. When drawing a gun makes people attack you, it's game over. Stay out of this mess. Let leftists turn their cities and states into crap holes. You can't stop it. All this banning is temporary. After Donald Trump gets his Trump 2020 landslide, the real changes come. Red states get all the cops. Red states get all the businesses. Red states get the economy. Enough cops quit. Trump sends in the National Guard to protect distressed communities. Not the wealthy communities whose insane kids are doing all this. Blue states get to keep the homeless and gangs who will be pushed into all the communities that caused this. So, use your goddamn heads. These are bizarre zombies not connected to reality. It happened in Omaha. A pawnbroker fired warning shots after he was attacked, and that made unarmed nutters attack him more. He ended up killing one. Stop treating leftists as rational. You're watching frenzied Stone Age Islamic State cargo cult mental patients attacking scary inanimate objects and wiping their butts on art while chanting incantations. Why, in God's name, do you keep trying to engage them? They are not members of the same species. Shooting them makes them redouble their efforts, the way the Imperial Japanese did. This isn't a cultural shift. It's the last bonsai charge. The last one is always the biggest and the most violent. You defeat them at the ballot box, not with guns. Remember, Democrats now think that murder is justified. Rich, white people of Minneapolis say you need to let black people murder your children. This is exactly how Timothy McVeigh justified murdering children at the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building. Look at their ages: 6 months, 5.5 years, 2.5, 14 months, 8 months. McVeigh called himself a warrior. He said that the infants and toddlers weren't evil as individuals, but they shared the collective guilt of being involved in an evil system, the federal government. So that made them evil, and they had to pay. Democrats are saying the exact same thing about white people. And these young goons are just as insane as McVeigh. He said he had a government implant in his butt. He went looking for UN military bases in the US, and he tried to go to Area 51. You're fantasizing if you think you could put on a uniform and go and stop the Stone Age Islamic State from tearing down the scary voodoo bad juju statues and ban the heap big, bad medicine words and images. Primitives destroy what they hate and fear. These Stone Age savages are rich and white, but they're no different from the Taliban and Timothy McVeigh. Do you know what Rooster Cogburn said about them? You can't serve papers on a rat, baby sister. You gotta kill him or let him be. Let the rats be. No more guns. This isn't true grit. It also isn't the French or Russian Revolution. Supporters of leftists must be whittled down to the absolute minimum. The Islamic State statue bashers are doing that for us. And finally, get this through your heads. Even moderate Democrats are torn. They do, in actual fact, agonize over choosing between Trump and the Stone Age. That's how bad off they are. This isn't our fight. Now it's down to Democrats. In the past, we debated the merits of different flavors of representative democracy. Now it's down to freedom or the absolute tyranny of a violent, absolutist, universally oppressive theocracy. Freedom versus leftism. There's nothing more we can say. Please don't choose the side that bans and physically destroys everything it doesn't like. Oh, really? If you have to say that, it's too late for them. The protesters and Taliban have moved the war into the hearts of Democrats. That's good. Use your guns for self-defense. If you absolutely must confront the Stone Age people or whatever illogical reason, don't fight them. They're completely insane. Guns rev them up. They aren't snowflakes, they're cavemen. At the Battle of Omdurman, September 2nd, 1898, the Mahdi forces of Caliph Abdullah al-Tashi didn't know what quick-firing artillery and machine guns were. The Mahdists had 52,000 men, most armed with spears. Their casualties were 12,000 dead, 13,000 wounded, and 5,000 captured. Today's rich, white, Stone Age statue bashers are like the Mahdi army. At Omdurman, the Mahdists attacked until they ran out of men. The final Mahdi cavalry charge of 500 men was wiped out. All 500 were killed. Do you get it now? Leftism has become a religion that worships Lyssa, the Greek goddess of rage, insanity, frenzy, and rabies. The blue cities and states can replace Washington and Lincoln with Lyssa and Hitler. Am I getting through to you? All the lightning fast mayhem has made it so that Trump no longer has to do anything, even though he will, of course. The election will now be a referendum on leftism, not Trump. And don't argue with me. Nobody else was able to see this, so I don't want to hear any more demands that we screw everything up. Armed militias don't work. Drawing a gun doesn't work. Shooting people doesn't work. These are zombie Islamic State Stone Age statue bashers. The election is now totally up to the Democratic voter. So back off. Be calm. Help them choose between Trump and the Stone Age, because they are honestly torn. Set a good example. Give them every reason to step into the light.
Wow, he really nailed it there. The Democratic Party is just falling apart. I don't think the Democrat Party will last the next few years. It's got to implode on itself. It's so factional, and it's so divided, and it's absolutely absurd what's going on in America at the moment. Thanks for digging that up, Puppy Max.
Yeah, I was in debate whether to, post it because of how emotional he gets. When I saw Elizabeth calling him a loudmouth, but like I explained before, he is reading someone else's thread, and he is using the emotion the writer put in his words. So he's like a conduit for the emotions of the writer. He is not the writer of that thread. So I want to explain that to Elizabeth.
Yes,
Only
and
if she truly.
very interesting threads they are too.
Okay, I'm close to the end of my contribution. I want to end with something. I'm ending with reading from A Day at a Time. But before that, I have the last uh, bit of a chapter from the book of Courtney Brown, Cosmic Explorers, and it's from the chapter, the last chapter, With the Eyes of God. 2 pages. It's not long. It's called Our Challenge, Our Destiny. There is no one person who will cause this planet to change. There is no one ET event that will cause all of humanity to go through that crisis of understanding. There is no one group that will force the major news outlets to report the truth about the extraterrestrials, the soul, or even God. For every person who makes an effort to awaken humanity, there are millions of others who are doing their part as well. Some of these others fly UFOs. Some are subspace beings who we label guardian angels. Others are common people who intuitively know that the truth has been hidden from them. Some petition Congress for hearings on these matters. Others write books and articles that call for greater openness. As for myself, I will continue to speak. I will also continue my work at the Farsight Institute. The Institute will always present its research on its website www.farsight.org, and I will ensure that the Institute maintains its commitment to an expanding research program from which so many have gained both knowledge and inspiration. Eventually, our collective struggle will bear great fruit. Eventually, all of God's children will grow out of their state of confusion and accept the reality of a universe filled with life. All of our brothers and sisters will recognize our common destiny and our divine heritage. When this happens, we will not be at the end of our evolutionary march. All the evidence suggests that we will then only begin to recognize the meaning of infinity, and thus of the truly long-term consequences to our parents or to God's gift of life to us. Our struggle for self-realization is not the idiocy of a malfunctioning species. We face great challenges as humans because God wants us to grow with Him, as Him. It's not God's choice that we should. It's not God's choice that we should suffer. It is His choice that He Himself should overcome all manner of obstacles through us. When we fight to assist humanity, we fight not only for the individuals that make up the collective, but for our Heavenly Father's desire. To the best of my understanding, there is no aspect of the universe that is truly separate from God. Since we are made of Him, we will evolve as He evolves. Why do I and others continue to fight a war of words against a tyranny of enforced ignorance? Could anything but a deeply internal love for our Father drive such behavior? For each of us, it is our choice to be like our Heavenly Father. We can see as He sees. We can hear as He hears. We can touch as He touches. We can love as He loves. unravels the puzzle behind human existence, we would not fight to ensure a divine destiny as. No, let me restart that. Once one unravels the puzzle behind human existence, who would not fight to ensure a divine destiny as grand as ours? Whenever we remote view, we extend our awareness across time and space. We can do this because we are already omnipresent. It is an introduction to a greater future of our personalities. It proves that we have the ability to break out of our narrow intellectual confines and to see the universe more as God sees it. When we allow our minds to roam the heavens, we are truly and literally seeing with the eyes of God. When we learn from what we see, we grow both individually and collectively. With that growth comes a natural desire to evolve further, to see more, to learn more, to be more. This is the destiny of infinite positive evolution, which flows from our divine heritage. We fight not to establish our right to explore and to grow within a wondrous universe. Rather, we fight ourselves to accept a right that was already granted to us. No one can take this right from us unless we voluntarily surrender it. Let us seize this moment and divine our revolutionary course of millennia to come. Listen not to the purveyors of fear. Fortune favors the bold. Let this be our mark in the universe. Let this be our destiny. The end.
That was beautiful. That brings to mind a quote from someone I can't remember, and it goes something like this. We are all of us sitting in the gutter, but some of us are looking at the stars.
Oh, a nice one. I have to look that up.
Awesome.
Okay, I'm going to.
For us, pups?
Yeah, the last one I read from A Day at a Time. Today is June 19th. Reflection for the day. The anonymous program teaches us that only one consideration should qualify our desire to completely disclose the damage we've done. And that's where a full revelation would seriously harm the one to whom we're making amends, or, just as important, others close to that person. We can hardly unload a detailed account of extramarital misadventures, for example, on the shoulders of an unexpected wife or husband. When we recklessly make the burdens of others heavier, such actions surely can't lighten our own burden. Sometimes, in that sense, telling all may be almost a self-indulgence for us. So in making amends, we should be tactful, sensible, considerate, and humble without being servile. Yes, as a child of God, do I stand on my feet and not crawl before anyone? Today I pray. May God show me that self-hatred has no role in making amends to others. Neither has the play acting of self-indulgence. I ask most humbly for my higher power's guidance and strive to maintain a mature balance in interpersonal relations, even in the most casual and fragile ones. Today I will remember, making amends is mending. The end. That's my contribution for today.
Thank you, Poppy. That was extremely well delivered, and that was interesting information. I'm still boggling about the 30 civilizations in our galaxy. I've been thinking about that a little bit. You've made me think, so that's well done. Kudos.
Thank you.
A little music, perhaps? And coming up on the other side of this song, it's all about the Australian angle to the Crossfire Hurricane operation. So we've got Happy Mandolin coming up, and then Alexander Downer. And with the Alexander Downer, I'll start in Australia, but I'll bring it home to America because that's where the action is at the moment. But yeah, I'll talk about that a little more later. Okay, that's the end of the song, guys, and good morning, Gunsmoke. Dance, freaks, dance. And I don't believe I've said hello to Storm this morning. How you doing, Storm? Okie dokie, folks. Give me a moment to go through my files. I've got a lot of material to cover, but this will help explain the origins of the Crossfire Hurricane debacle, where they tried to basically surveil Trump. And there's an Australian connection here. The actual inception of Crossfire Hurricane came from an Australian politician called Alexander Downer. He was High Commissioner to the United Kingdom of Australia. So he was Australian, but he was working for he was working in the United Kingdom as an ambassador. So, as I said, there's a lot of material, but this will explore the origins of Crossfire Hurricane. And as I said, there's a very strong Australian connection here. So it'll start with Australian information, but obviously it'll branch out into the American section of this whole debacle. And I'll also say that given the situation we're in at the moment, the legal situation I'm talking about, with indictments and Attorney General Barr saying people are going to go to prison and so forth, the actual arrests might begin in Australia. This whole thing could kick off in Oz. And I'm talking about perp walks, handcuffs, and so forth. Anyway, Storm says he's a bum. Alexander Downer is an absolute jerk. Anyway, that's him on your screen at the moment, and I will dig open the Wikipedia, and we'll start at the Wikipedia. Okay, guys, this is the vital statistics on Alexander Downer. So his full name is Alexander John Goss Downer. He was born in 1951. He was once leader of the Liberal Party, which is the right wing of Australian politics. He was Minister for Foreign Affairs from 1996 to 2007. And this is critical. He was High Commissioner to the United Kingdom from 2014 to 2018. So in the time frame that we're talking about, he was High Commissioner to the United Kingdom as Australia's envoy. His father was Sir Alec Downer, who was the grandson of Sir John Downer. And the background family of the family was banking and the diplomatic services. Downer was elected to Parliament at the 1984 federal election, and Downer was briefly leader of the Liberal Party. He was made Minister for Foreign Affairs in 1996 when John Howard got into government. And the crucial thing to take away from this document is this guy was High Commissioner to the United Kingdom of Australia. So he was a very high-ranking Australian politician given a very plum job. Anyway, I'll continue with the story. That's the vital statistics on Downer. Okay, the next article comes from Powerline, and it's from May 23rd of 2020. And it reads, Origin of Crossfire Hurricane discovered, ? Judicial Watch has uncovered a document that on face value purports to be the origin of the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. It was authored by Peter Strzok. It is heavily redacted and requires some knowledge of FBI protocols to understand fully. Nevertheless, the general importance seems clear. Okay, I'm jumping ahead significantly. There's some rather technical information written in legalese. It's not actually relevant. It is relevant, but it's the minutiae, it's the little tiny details that we can afford to let slip. Anyway, so this is out of sync because I'm jumping ahead, and it reads, if this really is the origin of the Russia hoax, remember, Crossfire Hurricane was the basis for the Russia hoax, the pretext is the familiar conversation involving George Papadopoulos, the then 28-year-old foreign policy advisor to the Donald Trump campaign. We know that he was just a hanger-on. He wasn't a foreign policy advisor. He was a volunteer for the Trump campaign. But the email contains nothing that could possibly justify the investigation that ensued. And we're talking about the email that actually links Downer to Papadopoulos. Okay. But the email contains nothing that could possibly justify the investigation that ensued. It merely repeats the rumor that the Trump team had received some kind of suggestion from Russia that it could assist this process with the anonymous release of information during the campaign that would be damaging to Mrs. Clinton and President Obama. The reference to President Obama is interesting and may help to account for the great interest he took in Crossfire Hurricane. There's more on this in the article. And, to continue, furthermore, it was unclear whether he or the Russians were referring to material acquired publicly or through other means. So there is no tie to the intrusion into the DNC emails, however, that may have been carried out. And this document is being purposely obfuscatory here. The DNC emails were already leaked out by the time these events took place. And it was also unclear how Mr. Trump's team reacted to the offer. We note the Trump team's reaction could, in the end, have little bearing of what Russia decides to do, with or without Trump's cooperation. In fact, the intelligence recited in the email contains no suggestion that the Trump campaign had reacted to the purported offer of Russian assistance, that is, at all. And as Strzok acknowledged, the Trump campaign's reaction was likely irrelevant. So if this really is how the Russia investigation began, several points are obvious. First, all it had to do with Peter Strzok, who apparently both proposed and approved the alleged investigation and kept it secret from most of his colleagues at the FBI. So Strzok was the beginning of the paper trail in Washington, D.C. But the actual tale begins with Papadopoulos and Downer. That's my own comment. So second, the investigation is specifically tied to the Foreign Agents Registration Act. This is odd to say the least, since nothing in the Papadopoulos story could possibly invoke that statute in any way. And two, the FARA was, as of 2016, a rather obscure and rarely enforced statute, not the stuff of secret FBI investigations. So we're getting to the point now where they're massaging the truth, massaging the process to get the FISA warrants. Anyway, to continue. Third, the Papadopoulos rumor is an absurd... So what Papadopoulos had was just rumor. And it is an absurd pretext for what turned into a comprehensive investigation into the Trump campaign. They inflated Papadopoulos and Downer. The agreement that they reached was inflated massively, absolutely massively. So taking the Papadopoulos rumor at face value, there was no suggestion that anyone associated with the Trump campaign had done anything wrong. 3.5 years and 1 million newspaper headlines later, it was confirmed that no one associated with the Trump campaign did anything wrong. Why was there an investigation in the first place? The answer obviously lies in the realm of politics, not law enforcement or national security. Fourth point, it's interesting that the Papadopoulos rumor included a suggestion that the Russians had dirt on Barack Obama. Perhaps this has been reported before, but if so, I don't remember it. My comment is that's new knowledge to me, or new knowledge when I first read this document. So a suggestion that the Russians had dirt on Barack Obama. Perhaps this had been reported before, but I don't remember it. Might this be the reason why Obama's FBI was so interested in the Papadopoulos rumor and determined to act on it, even though, as Strzok readily acknowledged, what the Russians might do needn't have anything to do with the Trump campaign's response to the supposed Papadopoulos overture? And jumping ahead here just a little bit. No doubt Obama preferred Hillary Clinton to Donald Trump as a successor, but there was no love lost between the two. My own comment here is that we're watching them begin to eat each other right now. I will continue. Maybe Obama's concern, at least initially, was more about his own legacy than the 2016 election. Maybe he was terrified that the Russians might release information that reflected badly on him, relating possibly to his assurance to President Medvedev that he would have more flexibility to give away the store in Europe after he was re-elected. And who knows what other communications might have passed between President Obama and Vladimir Putin's regime, which according to Obama was no threat at all. I'll also make the point here, this is my own comment, don't forget that the Russians have their entire, they've got their whole, their intelligence organizations have the corresponding information that the American intelligence agencies have. Anyway, I will continue. According to Obama, Vladimir Putin's regime was no threat at all, especially since Obama was weirdly determined to forge an alliance with Iran, which is Russia's proxy in the Middle East. Remember that Obama appointed Michael Flynn director of the Defense Intelligence Agency, but then fell out with him because Flynn opposed the Iranian nuclear deal. The deeper we dive into the worst scandal in American history, the more Barack Obama seems to be a central actor. And that's the end of this article. I'll jump to the next one. Okay, this is an interesting article, but just a moment, I need to deal with pop-ups and manage my files. Just a moment, folks. Okay, this is an older article, but it'll explain the events that led to the meeting between Papadopoulos and Downer in Kensington in London. The byline is Chuck Ross, and this comes out of an outfit called the Daily Caller. The headline to this article is Papadopoulos goes after Aussie diplomat who sparked collusion probe. So we'll begin with a series of bullet points that sum up the article, and then we'll get into the actual meat of the article later, in just a moment actually. So former Trump campaign aide George Papadopoulos accused former Australian diplomat Alexander Downer of setting him up during the 2016 presidential campaign. We're talking cloak and dagger stuff here. Downer helped spark the FBI's collusion probe after sharing details of a May 2016 conversation he had with Papadopoulos in London. I'll read that again. Alexander Downer, the Australian High Commissioner to the United Kingdom, Downer helped spark the FBI's collusion probe after sharing details of a May 2016 conversation he had had with Papadopoulos in London. Alexander Downer dismissed Papadopoulos' allegations. Papadopoulos suggested on Monday that, and remember this is an older article, that former Australian diplomat Alexander Downer was sent by an organisation or entity. So when we're saying organisation or entity, it's the people on whose behalf Alexander Downer were acting. So we're talking about them in the kill box. Organisation or entity means cabal. So Alexander Downer was sent by an organisation or entity to meet with him, that's George Papadopoulos, in London during the 2016 presidential campaign. The notion that Downer randomly reached out to me just to have a gin and tonic is laughable. And this is Papadopoulos speaking. Some organisation or entity sent him to meet me, and Papadopoulos wrote this on Twitter. And just a moment. And Papadopoulos continues with, for the sake of our republic and the integrity of this investigation, I think it's time Downer is as exposed as Christopher Steele, rather. And Christopher Steele was an American intelligence agent who actually penned the Russian dossier, whatever you want to call it, but that's just for the sake of being complete. Anyway, Papadopoulos continues, referring to the former British spy, Christopher Steele, who wrote the dossier accusing the Trump campaign of colluding with Russia. And remember, that included all sorts of things like urinating and Russian hookers and all sorts of stuff. So, Papadopoulos, 31, I believe he was 28 when he actually met with Downer, but I'm not sure what the discrepancy in ages is. But anyway, Papadopoulos was sentenced to 14 days in jail for lying to the FBI during an interview on January the 27th, 2017, about his contacts with Maltese Professor Joseph Mifsud. I'm not getting into Mifsud in this, but that's an interesting angle to this story as well. I will continue. In an April 2016 meeting, Mifsud told Papadopoulos that he had learned that the Russian government had dirt on former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in the form of thousands of her emails. 2 weeks later, Papadopoulos and Downer would meet in London under what the former Trump aide now believes are incredibly suspicious circumstances. Downer, my own comment here is Downer was playing with the big boys, and I don't think he realized what he was getting himself into. Anyway, I'll continue with the article. So the meeting took place on May 10th, 2016 at Kensington Wine Room in London. Days before, an associate of Downer's named Erica Thompson contacted Papadopoulos requesting the sit-down. Papadopoulos had met Thompson a month earlier through an Israeli diplomat named Christian Cantor. Now that's 3 different rabbit holes in one paragraph there, but I'll reread it. So, May 10th, 2016, London, a wine bar. Days before the meeting, an associate of Downer's named Erica Thompson contacted Papadopoulos requesting the sit-down. Papadopoulos had met Thompson a month earlier through an Israeli diplomat named Christian Cantor. Now, in my own dig, I found a very little bit about Erica Thompson, but not much that puts her in context. And the Israeli diplomat named Christian Cantor, as far as I can find out, he doesn't exist, but that could be my own failure to research properly. So, to continue with the article, Downer had given only one interview about his interaction with Papadopoulos. He told the Australian, a broadsheet that's a broadsheet in Australia, he told the Australian in April that the Trump aide said Russians may have derogatory information about Clinton. He said that Papadopoulos did not mention emails and did not use the word dirt to describe the information. He also claimed to have passed the information along to others in the Australian government. The information was eventually shared with the FBI, which opened its counterintelligence investigation into possible collusion on July 31st, 2016. And we're getting towards the end of this article here. Alexander Downer's claims about his interactions with Papadopoulos also ended up in the hands of State Department officials, sources have told the Daily Caller News Foundation. Downer dismissed Papadopoulos' tweet storm, telling Australia's Sydney Morning Herald, that's a newspaper, "I'll leave others to make the judgments about the veracity of those tweets." Just a moment, please. So we've got spooky people like Erica Thompson and others that I cannot identify, and they are the ones who massaged Papadopoulos, who had a low-level position within the Trump campaign. They massaged Papadopoulos into giving up a little bit of derogatory information about Trump, and it was from that little bit of derogatory information that the whole Crossfire Hurricane situation unfolded. That's the end of the article. I'll jump to the next one. Okay, this is just a quick article to show you the Australian reaction to this situation. This comes from April 20th, 2020, so it's relatively fresh. It's not super fresh, but it's good information. And it comes from an outfit called IOTW Report. I'm not sure what that acronym means, but Carmen will drop that into both chat streams, I imagine. And the headline to this article is "The Australians Throw Alexander Downer Under the Bus on Spygate." Like I said earlier, they're beginning to eat each other. So I can't find a byline, so I'll begin the article. So coming out of the Sydney Morning Herald, former Foreign Minister Alexander Downer acted without clearance from Australian officials. That's absolute bollocks. They were probably the same Australian officials who massaged the situation to get Downer and Papadopoulos to meet each other in Kensington. Anyway, Alexander Downer acts without clearance from Australian officials when he contacted United States diplomats 4 years ago to raise concerns about potential Russian interference in the US presidential election. So Downer contacted United States diplomats 4 years ago to raise concerns about potential Russian interference in the US presidential election. That is the that's it. That's the whole thing in the nutshell, right there. Alexander Downer was the inception of Crossfire Hurricane. So to continue with the article. A new memoir by former Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull reveals that Mr. Downer raised his concerns directly with the US Embassy in London in July 2016, but had no authority from Canberra to do so. Canberra is our capital city. This move was crucial to the launch of an FBI investigation into the Russian support for the election of US President Donald Trump, who dismissed the inquiry as a witch hunt and ordered an inquiry into the affair. Downer, the Australian High Commissioner to the UK, at the time met Trump aide George Papadopoulos in London in May 2016 and was told the Russians had damaging material on Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton. Just a moment, please. And we're getting towards the end of this one. Sorry to repeat some of the information, but the end of this article reads, while Mr. Downer mentioned this in a cable to the Department of Foreign Affairs, the information was not acted upon until he later chose to raise it with the deputy at the US Embassy in London, who is called Elizabeth Dibble. In his new memoir, A Bigger Picture, Mr. Turnbull, a previous Mr. Turnbull, a previous Prime Minister of Australia, said Mr. Downer did this without checking with the department. That means there are at least 3 or 4 high-ranking Australian officials that have hung Downer out to dry, saying he acted as a rogue asset, which is absolutely bollocks, because Erica Thompson, who helped set up the meeting between Papadopoulos and Downer. Sorry, I forgot where that ended. Anyway, I'll jump to the next article. Okay, now we're getting into the criminal activity of Downer. And this comes from an outfit called Gumshoe News. Now, this one goes all the way back to June of 2018. I can't find a byline. But the headline reads, Alexander Downer helped Aussies fund the Clintons. And this is disgusting. Okay, the byline is G5, I think. That's all I can find. Anyway, as I said, it comes out of Gumshoe News, and you'll be able to find this in both chat streams. I'll begin. Australia's High Commissioner to the United Kingdom, Alexander Downer, began the entire Russian collusion scam, Mueller witch hunt, in America at a drunken party in the Kensington Wine Rooms, London, in May 2016. He also initiated the handover of Australian 250 million, and that's only what's been currently revealed. Downer initiated the handover of $250 million of taxpayer funds to the HRC campaign and the Clinton Foundation. That means Australian tax dollars went into Hillary Rodham Clinton's pocket for the campaign, let alone the Clinton Foundation. Anyway, I'll continue with the article. 10 years earlier, in 2006, the then Australian Foreign Minister Alexander Downer and Bill Clinton signed a smaller amount, a mere $25 million, in a memorandum of understanding, triggering the first round of Australian donations to the Clinton Foundation. Downer had never subjected it to due diligence. My comment here is we're talking about buckets of black money being sloshed around, and Downer had his nose in the trough, that's for sure. Anyway, I'll continue with the article. The Clinton Foundation recipient entity was the Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS Initiative, or CHI. Australian due diligence failed to detect, which is government code speak for nothing was done, that the Clinton Foundation entity did not hold American authority to operate in the research or treatment of AIDS and HIV as it is claimed. Furthermore, that entity was wound up by the Massachusetts corporate regulator, effective 31st of December 2007, so about a year later. To continue, a wide paper trail leading to that end has been publicly in place at the time Downer authorized and pressed for the initial $25 million fraud. Fraud's the only word for it. So, in November of 2016, Rupert Murdoch's News Limited was leaked a false and misleading news story about DFAT, which ran under the headline, Australia ceases multi-million-dollar controversial donations to Clinton family charities. But payments to the Clinton Foundation continued, along with the new contracts and the Clinton-Gaiastra Enterprise Partnership. So knowing the laundering and fraud operations of the Clinton Foundation and its myriad of connected entities, it would be reasonable for either the Australian or American governments, or both, and that's happening now, is my comment, to legitimately investigate Downer and the various money trails surrounding him. And that's the least of Downer's problems at this point, is my comment. But are the wolves really going to investigate who ate the chickens? The FBI interview of Downer in London was more to do with what had escaped rather than the pursuit of any matter. And that's in Department of Justice speak language. I don't fully understand it, but I'll continue. It could be discovered that Downer is far more an international money rogue than is being hinted here. Such a discovering would lead to a litany of names in the Australian Liberal Party, the Australian Democratic Party, the British Conservative Party, and their variously flavoured cohorts in government and business who are directly connected. Downer is as deep as it gets. As it's understood how institutionalised pedophilia is still well hidden, then it can be understood that international government-level financial frauds are even more difficult to expose. That's in spite of some current but limited insights into the deep states, false flags, orchestrations of the GFC, and the EU New World Order projections. Just a moment. Okay, I'm jumping ahead here slightly. It was Downer of the Liberal Party who began funding the Clinton machine, but this was continued by Labor Party Prime Ministers Kevin Rudd and Julia Gillard. So both sides of politics in Australia have been giving money to the Clintons, our tax dollars. Legitimate inquiries in Australia or America concerning Downer and the Mueller scam, apart from the money aspect, could easily lead to questions as to massive international government financial fraud, arms, drugs, and other fascinating related issues involving some of the really big names that the world has come to recognise. But by the end of 2008, the Clinton Foundation reported that Australia was its largest Western government donor. Only some $88 million was known at that time, itself a matter of great shame. I can actually tell you now that the total amount of money given to the Clinton Health Initiative by Australian taxpayers is over $440 million. That's nearly $500 million that went directly into the Clinton campaign and the Clinton Health Initiative. Okay, I'm jumping ahead slightly here. And we're talking about payments from the Australian government to the Clinton Foundation. And it begins with the frauds that I just discussed required a tag that was acceptable to the tutored public. AIDS, research, climate change, hurricane relief, poverty in the third world, vaccinations, disease prevention, women's rights, etc. From there on, national leaders and public figures could scout and further defund and defraud their own governments, citing the great credentials and humanitarian adventures of their believable peers. So they all closed ranks around the Clintons. To continue, plausible denial, government to government, for example, was at all times built into the equation, and there could never be an inquiry as to what was actually happening. You can't investigate yourself. That's the gist of that. In the example of the Clinton-managed Hurricane Haitian Relief Fund, ex-President Clinton went onto American TV, and I'm not going to finish with that. Okay, jumping ahead slightly. We've got a guy, an Australian politician called David Leyonhjelm, and I think he might be one of the good ones. And he was senator at the time this document was written. I'm not actually sure. Anyway, Leyonhjelm says, I was advised that payments were continuing to occur to the Clinton Health and Access Initiative and that $11 million was paid to this initiative in 2015 and 2016. Australia ceases Then there was an article on November 28th last year of this document, which ran under the headline, Australia ceases multinational dollar donations to controversial Clinton family charities. My question is, have any decisions regarding Australian government funding to Clinton-related charities been made since the previous estimates? And this is an older article. Anyway, I'm going to jump towards the end of this now. And that brings us to the Downer report, the questioning of Operation Crossfire Hurricane appeared at the Washington FBI on August the 2nd, 2017. The timelines have been adjusted as you could expect. The Mueller scam began in May 2017 to remove the focus of the reality of the Russian-Clinton collusion that would lead to the opening of the Clinton Foundation can of worms. When leaked Democratic Party emails began appearing in public, Australian operatives passed on the Downer intelligence to their American counterparts, helping to trigger the FBI probe into Russian interference in the US election. It was switched from the Clintons to Trump. My own comment here is this is classic projection. The Democratic Party is anyway, look, I'll just continue with the article. So Trump in March 2016 described his then campaign aide Papadopoulos as an excellent guy. In November, Trump labeled him a low-level volunteer and a liar. The full and true depth of the Clintons and their cohorts in crime is still to be revealed. The Clintons, for one, are the Ceausescus, or Bonnie and Clyde at best. They were never the great humanitarians of the illusion. All those who lay down with them are as guilty as they are. So that's the kind of stuff that Downer gets up to. That's the kind of world he lives in. Massaging of facts, cloak and dagger, black money, pedophile, international superstars, the works. Anyway, I'm going to jump to the next article. Okay, there's only a few bits and pieces I wanted to pull out of this one. But this comes from an outfit called the Daily Caller. Just a moment, I'll get you a date and a byline. Okay, it's Chuck Ross, and it's from May of 2019. And we've got a set of bullet points and which sum up the article. In his most detailed remarks on the topic so far, former Australian diplomat Alexander Downer defended the tip he gave the FBI regarding George Papadopoulos. Downer said that as a warrior of the Western Alliance, read Deep State Stooge, is my comment, he provided the FBI with a memo he wrote after a May 10, 2016 meeting in which he says Papadopoulos mentioned that Russia might release information about Hillary Clinton close to the election. I don't know why he told me this, said Downer, dismissing Papadopoulos' claims that the diplomat was sent to elicit damaging information about him. This is an extremely complicated situation. This is my own comment. And some of the information doesn't correlate with other information. It gets into grey areas at some point. Okay, I'm jumping ahead here. Downer disputed claims that the ex-diplomat was part of a conspiracy to entrap the campaign advisor. So we're talking about George Papadopoulos being set up by Erica Thompson, Alexander Downer, and at least two other people who were part of the massaging of the Papadopoulos-Downer meeting. I'll continue. I don't know why he told me this, but he did, and we reported it, and the rest is history, Downer said in an interview on Sky News. There's no defense for him saying it's some sort of weird conspiracy. I mean, it's what he told me. I have no idea why he was blabbering this, but if you say that sort of thing to somebody who is part of Five Eyes intelligence community, I mean, I would regard myself as a warrior for the Western Alliance, said Downer, who is now out of government. Five Eyes relates to Five Eyes relates to an intelligence sharing agreement between the US, the UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. And we're getting towards the end of this article. While Downer was critical of Papadopoulos, he said there was no indication from his May 2016 conversation that the Trump campaign had colluded with Russia to steal or release any Clinton information. There was no suggestion from Papadopoulos, nor in the record of the meeting that was sent back to Canberra. There was no suggestion that there was collusion between Donald Trump or Donald Trump's campaign and the Russians, Downer said. So Downer just completely lied his ass off. He got caught, he was playing with the big boys, he was way out of his depth, and then he lied his ass off on television about the meeting with Papadopoulos. And as I said, some of the facts and the information that I'm presenting here doesn't quite correlate with each other. So we're talking fog of war. Anyway, I'll jump to the next article. And now we're getting to the interesting bit. This comes out of a fantastic organization called the American Thinker. And this is from November of 2019. And the byline is Thomas Lifson. And this has an absolutely beautiful title. Australian media reporting that US Attorney Durham has interviewed Alexander Downer. US Attorney John Durham is running an investigation into the Russia hoax that has been almost airtight. A fragment of information on his activities, however, comes our way via Australian media. Alexander Downer's meeting with George Papadopoulos at the Kensington Wine Room in 2016 played a key role in providing a rationale for an FBI investigation of the Trump campaign, including FISA warrants that allow wiretapping. At this time, Downer was the Australian High Commissioner, which is ambassador, to the United Kingdom, and had been Australia's foreign minister earlier. A very, very senior diplomat to be entertaining a young Trump campaign volunteer. The meeting, also attended by Aussie diplomat Erica Thompson. This is where my own comment here is. This is where the information gets a bit grey. I can't actually place Erica Thompson at the wine bar. I don't even I've got some sources that say she was at the meeting with Downer and Papadopoulos, and some that say that she wasn't. Anyway, so the meeting, this article says the meeting, also attended by Aussie diplomat Erica Thompson, elicited the information from Papadopoulos that he had been told by mysterious Maltese Professor Joseph Mifsud that the Russians had a trove of Hillary Clinton's missing emails. When that information was duly passed along and reached the United States, it became justification for investigation of collusion with Russia. Okay. Now we've got a section of text that comes from an Australian newspaper called The Australian. US Attorney John Durham, tasked with investigating the origins of the probe into the Russia influence in the election, is understood to have interviewed Mr. Downer in London last month and reviewed a confidential Australian diplomatic cable to clarify Australia's role. Mr. Durham is also believed to have interviewed Australian diplomat Erica Thompson, who arranged and attended the Downer-Papadopoulos meeting. He is understood to have asked Mr. Downer, and this is John Durham, whether he knew Joseph Mifsud, the Maltese academic who told Mr. Papadopoulos the Russian government had dirt on Hillary Clinton. It is unclear where the information above comes from, because in the interview with Sky News that I just mentioned in the previous article, Downer dummied up and cited boilerplate diplomatic language. Mr. Downer said he would not talk about the meeting in London's Kensington wine rooms in 2016, which set off the chain reaction resulting in the investigation. There is now, in the United States, yet another inquiry into this, and Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison has said Australia will fully cooperate with that inquiry. So that's what the government is doing, and so the plan is to say nothing during the course of that inquiry, he said. And the final line, there's a tweet here from George Papadopoulos. George says, Alexander Downer, the Clinton errand boy whose bizarre behaviour at my meeting with him sparked the Durham probe, was on Australian TV today ranting like a lunatic against Trump and me. The probe is closing in on him. He's feeling the heat. And this article ends with, stay tuned. Downer's stonewalling of most questions suggests he is taking the investigation very seriously indeed. So there you go. That's the Australian angle to Crossfire Hurricane. I'll jump to my next article. Okay, this comes from an outfit called Tea Party Pack. Let me get you a date and a byline. Sorry, this is unusual. It's formatted badly. I have to go through the article. Sorry about that, folks. A little bit of dead air. As I said, this one comes out of Tea Party Pack. I can't find a date or a byline, but this information is fairly fresh, if I remember correctly. And the headline is, evidence found by Durham in Mifsud's phones and the ties they reveal is bad news for the UK and John Brennan. General Michael Flynn's attorney, Sidney Powell, made a request just days ago to the Department of Justice asking for them to hand over the contents of 2 phones that were connected to Joseph Mifsud. Well, as it turns out, we now know that the phones in question were from the United Kingdom. The plot thickens when it comes to uncovering all of the left's attacks against President Trump, liberty, and our way of life. And there's a section here that's not loading because my machine's not wonderful. Anyway, I'll continue with the text of the article. Sidney Powell, on Tuesday, demanded the DOJ produce evidence that has only recently come into the DOJ's possession. The evidence includes the data and metadata of the following devices. Now, the defendant in this case was Michael T. Flynn. Okay, this is a little bit out of sync because I've jumped ahead slightly. But Sidney Powell writes this in her request for the contents of the two phones linked to Mifsud. Sidney Powell writes, "This information is material, exculpatory, and relevant to the defense of Mr. Flynn, and specifically to the Oconus lures and agents that Western intelligence tasked against him, likely as early as 2014, to arrange, unbeknownst to him, connections with certain Russians that they would then use against him in their false claims. The phones were used by Mr. Joseph Mifsud. We were the first to point out that there was more than one spy working to derail the Trump team back in 2015 in our post in June 2018. The president retweeted information in our post only to be ridiculed by the corrupt media. To this day, Wikipedia claims Trump was incorrect." Now we have a tweet from Donald J. Trump, and it's from June 6th, 2018. And DJT says, "Wow, Strzok, Page, the incompetent and corrupt FBI lovers, have texts referring to a counterintelligence operation into the Trump campaign dating way back to December 2015. Spygate is in full force. Is the mainstream media interested yet? Big stuff." Of course, you can imagine how General Flynn's brother reacted after reading Attorney Powell's request, like any good brother would. And Joseph J. Flynn says, "Oconus lures, bunch of traitorous goddamn creeps." Sidney Powell, you can read these for yourselves. I'm just going to address the body of the article. So, we found out soon that the phones noted by Powell were connected to the United Kingdom. So Joseph Mifsud's phones, even though he was in Malta, were connected or sourced from the UK. So Mifsud's SIM cards in Sidney Powell 1 request are British, as you can clearly deduct from serial numbers. This was obviously thought in advance as a strategy to buy time and to exclude all his Italian contacts from scrutiny. Check the country number. I'll read that again. It's a very complex idea. Joseph Mifsud, his SIM cards, in Sidney Powell's request, the SIM cards are British, as you can clearly deduct from serial numbers. This means that there was obviously thought far in advance as a strategy against Trump to buy time and to exclude all his Italian contacts from scrutiny. Check the country number. So Operation Crossfire Hurricane, these shadowy people that are standing behind Downer, actually had this plan cooked up as a just in case if Trump actually won. Anyway, I need to jump to the next section of the article. Right, I'm jumping ahead here. And here we have my personal bugbear. There's a guy called Stefan Halper, and he's at the periphery of so many different situations, but he never actually seems to be a player himself. Stefan Halper, my bugbear, my white whale. I want to see Stefan Halper go down. He pops up all the time. Anyway, I'll continue with this article. So we were the first to report in May 2018 that the UK had more to do with the Spygate sham than Russia ever did. This appears more and more accurate by the day. George Papadopoulos was set up in the UK by Stefan Halper, Joseph Misford, Alexander Downer, and others. And when it says others, we're talking Erica Thompson, and I've come across evidence that indicates that Alexander Downer was instructed by at least two other people. So we've got another two people who are in the shadows who haven't been named yet. Anyway, then the story picks up with Christopher Steele, who is the source of the document. Now, Christopher Steele is a former MI6, and he is behind the bogus Steele dossier. And of course, now General Flynn was set up in the UK in an attempt to tie him to Russia. Downer, Halper, and Mifsud are all connected to an organisation known as Hakluyt. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but it's Hkluyt. And I'm actually going to do a dig on that for my own interest. I don't like loose ends. I don't know what Hakluyt is. I haven't had time to dig into that yet. But it is some sort of corporate organisation. I know that much. Okay, I'm not sure of the implications of this tweet, but it's a Greg Rubini replying to Greg Rubini. And Greg says, many of the guys involved with the spy/entrapment operations of General Flynn and George Papadopoulos are connected with Hakluyt. 10. Alexander Downer, Stefan Halper, and Joseph Misford are all connected with Hakluyt. Hakluyt. I don't know how to pronounce it, and it may even be an acronym. I'm not sure. Alexander Downer was even on the board of directors of Hakluyt from 2008 to 2014. Now we have John Brennan connected to Hakluyt. This is the beginning of a dig for me, actually. I'm going to dig on this sometime before bed tonight. But we've got Brennan linked to Downer, linked to the works. And I'm getting towards the end of this article now. I've jumped considerable amounts of information. If you're interested in this, it's a great article. I will continue. No person running for president should be so openly and egregiously opposed by the opposite party that someone would dig up dirt on the individual, spy on them, and do everything in their power to prevent that person from having any shot at victory. This is a thwarting of the will of the American people. Sure, if someone has done something illegal, that's a different story. But trying to spy on them to purposefully shoot their chances down of winning is appalling, and it goes against everything our country stands for. And there's a link here to another article from the Gateway Pundit, and it has all the details about the United Kingdom SIM cards in Misford's phones. Anyway, like I said, this dig actually opened up a couple of rabbit holes for me to dig before I go to bed. Anyway, I will jump to the next article.
Here's something about Hakluyt.
Hakluyt, yes, Poppy Max. Have you got information for me, mate?
Well, it's pronounced Hakluyt.
Hakluyt.
Hakluyt, and it's a company founded in 1995. It's called Hakluyt and Company, and it's founded by Christopher James and Mike Reynolds, who both work for the British intelligence MI6.
Any more juice, or is that the explanation?
Oh, let me check. the name of the company refers to a 16th century writer, Richard Hakluyt. And in 2001, the Sunday Times revealed that Hakluyt was a German documentary maker. He paid the German documentary maker Manfred Schickelrieder, or shall I say it in German, Manfred Schickelrieder. He paid him clients as British Petrol and Shell to investigate Greenpeace. He had to gather information about the movements of the Greenpeace ship Atlantic Ocean. Schickelrieder previously worked for the German intelligence, where he gathered information about terrorist groups like the Rote Armee Fraktion. After the news was known, the British members of Parliament. I'm translating this from Dutch to English. Let me see. Jack Straw and other members of Parliament wanted to know if MI6 used Hakluyt to spy on environmentalists.
Gotcha. So they're a shady organisation linked with Brennan, linked with MI6.
Yeah.
Thank you.
In 2008, it's connected to Australia too. In 2008, Australian journalist Melissa Sweet announced that Hakluyt had approached her to come work for the organization, and she let know that journalists work for the company as well. They are paid. There's more. But I'll try to find it in English and give you the link.
It's all right, Puppy Max. That's more than an adequate on-the-fly explanation. So it's a shadowy group connected to intelligence agencies, but it's a corporation. And if I dig on Hakluyt, that might show me who massaged Alexander Downer into the meeting with Papadopoulos. That's what I'm hoping anyway. So I've got that written down,
okay.
And I'll dig that thoroughly. I may or may not present it. I mean, it's pretty dry material. Anyway, I've got 2 more articles left. And the first one is called Happening. And the second one is called Really Happening. So I'll just address these real quick. Did we have Scope with us?
He's here, but he can't get connected to voice.
If you can hear me, Scope, good morning, sir. I will continue with the articles. Okay, this comes from an outfit called Outraged Patriot. And it's called, the headline is Breaking Major Deep State Arrests Happening This Week. Here's what we know so far. Okay, so the original source of this information was Gateway Pundit. And the word on the street from some qualified sources is that former deep state crooked cops are going to be arrested this week. And Lindsey Graham says half the deep state will be going to prison. We heard last night from Senator Lindsey Graham. Half the people behind the Russian investigation are going to go to jail. Of course, we've heard this before. Remember Huber? We've also heard Senator Graham say he was going to bring in a whole batch of villains before the Senate Judiciary Committee. Lindsey has been saying this since before he took chairmanship of the committee back in 2018, but so far Lindsey has yet failed to bring anyone before his committee except for Inspector General Horowitz in over a year. Okay, now this requires abstract thought because it's an interesting, complex article. And I will continue with the article. But another source, the same one who first outed Sciaramella as the whistleblower, Greg Rubini on Twitter, is saying dirty cops Peter Strzok and Andrew McCabe will both be arrested this week, maybe even Monday or Tuesday. And
that name you just named is it's a no-no.
Please explain. I've missed it. I've lost the plot here.
YouTube bans you for naming that name or resembling Caramella.
Oh, okay. So I got the pronunciation wrong.
No, you got the pronunciation right. You shouldn't name it altogether. It's a taboo for social media to have named that person. It's not allowed to come out.
Gotcha. Do you have anything else to add?
That's it.
Excellent. I will now jump to the last article. Okay. This is from the 10th of February this year. And it comes out of News Punch. And it reads, Lindsey Graham. The headline reads, sorry, I'll give you the byline as well. The byline is my old mate Baxter Dimitri. And as I said, it comes... Oh, hang on a minute. Sorry, I had technical issues there. Okay, deep state actors responsible for the Russian collusion investigation are gonna go to jail. Senator Lindsey Graham warned... Yeah, look, I'm going to leave it there. That last article had pop-ups and it was just too mangled. Anyway, guys, there you go. That's Alexander Downer's role in the whole attempt to bring down President Trump with Russian PP-gate. And, yeah. How about a song, please?
Oh, hold on. I wasn't ready for that yet.
Okay. Hey, Mark, are you there, mate?
Yes, Dumpster. How are you this evening?
Yeah, doing all right, mate. I've really got my teeth into this Downer thing, and I'm going to know it back to front by the time I sleep. Downer's a piece of work, ain't he?
Yeah, he really is. And I think that the bloke who's told him to do what he did, so he was set up. I read an article somewhere a long time ago, so I don't have the source.
That's cool. Go for it anyway.
I read an article that John Brennan and maybe someone else from the Russian investigation that's currently underway actually put Downer up to talking to George Papadopoulos. So they tried to, they were using an Australian because they thought he might be more at ease with someone who's not in the American political field as such. So
you reckon that's why they named him?
Well, I think they told Downer to do it and set the whole meeting up, and that from the article that I read, it was John Brennan and someone else. So they actually asked Downer to do the job personally.
Yeah. I'd be really interested to see who was actually behind Downer. Like I was saying before, I've got good information actually, that indicates that there are at least two people who were Downer's handlers. That's the only way to put it. Downer was completely out of his depth. And I reckon he's as compromised gets. And I believe he went down that path willingly. And the whole Downer family Sir Alec Downer and his grandfather, Sir Downer, even his daughter. The whole family are just filth.
Yeah, well, if I was giving him a number, I think he'd have to be 86. Because I believe he's that competent. Maxwell Smart, secret agent.
Okay, got any more comments for us, Mark? Any little tidbits, bits and pieces? Oh, do you want to tell the folks playing at home about Downer's performance on the ABC, where he did the Rocky Horror Picture Show? You familiar with that one?
No, I'm not. I stay away from him because he's. I don't usually look at stuff with Downer in it if I can help it, because it's just there's something wrong about that guy.
Something very, very wrong, and it's not that he's off weird; he's off evil. And there's plenty of images of him, like that story that I was trying to drag out of you. Years and years ago, Alexander Downer was on the ABC, which is our national broadcaster, and he appeared in a G-string, fishnet stockings, and high heels and lipstick. And he did this willingly on the Australian national broadcaster. And he's also got a thing for women's shoes, and God knows what else he's into. But Downer's got to go. Downer needs to hang. And the best part about what I found was Downer can be extradited to America and face treason charges there, which means we don't have to have the death penalty in Australia.
Well, if I had a choice to seeing Alexander Downer or Julian Assange in jail, then I know who I'd rather see there, and it isn't Julian.
No, Julian's actually got a career in Australian politics once the dust settles. Oh, g'day, Scope. Are you there? Can you hear me? Test comms. Test communication. Scope, can you hear me? Okay.
Apparently not.
Okay, I'll play a song, and then we'll see how the rest of the evening pans out. But we've hit all our targets, people. Carmen, Puppy, and myself, we've delivered a decent chunk of information. We've got half an hour on the clock, so we can muck around and talk about whatever we want. But I need to play a song so that I can recalibrate my nicotine levels, and hopefully Scope gets his comms up.
Yeah, that'd working.
Okay, mate.
It's always nice to listen to Scope as well as Carmen and Puppy.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to play the song, and I'll let you guys know when it's over. Beautiful. Yeah, good morning, Reggie. How you doing? And Julia for freedom. Thank you. Yeah, what are we up to now, folks? We've got
check
20 minutes on the clock. Go ahead.
Check out the general text. I just dropped an image about use most recent 3 posts. I took a screenshot. It's really disturbing, especially the first 2.
Okay, I'll read these. 4481. 19th of June 2020, 12:36 and 6 seconds in the AM. And it's from Q, and it reads, German officials placed children with known pedophiles for 30 years. And Q has this to say: only when evil is forced into the light can we defeat it. Only when they can no longer operate in the shadows can people see the truth for themselves. Only when they see the truth for themselves will people understand the true nature of their deception. Difficult truths. And then we've got 4482, and it's big tech cozying up to pedophiles. And this is from the 19th of June 2020, 9 minutes past 1 in the AM and 27 seconds, just to be precise. And there's a link to a Breitbart article. I haven't actually seen the article yet. This is new to me. Difficult truths. This is not another 4-year election. And then we've got a post that relates to the blue flu, as they call it. Cops leaving the business, and it's called Thin Blue Line Flag USA, and it's post 4483, and the image is simply a American flag in black and white with the thin blue line through the middle of it that represents the police that maintain order in society. Oh.
You drop the links of those Q posts?
Say again?
You want me to drop the links that were in the Q posts?
I think we can get away with it.
You don't have... Well, which one? Because there are 3 links. One in Q post 4481 and 2 links in Q post 4482.
Do we need to explore the links? Because we're getting close to wrap-up time.
Those we should get for another day.
If you want to drop those links, let's have a look at them. The Breitbart article actually sounds pretty good. We've got a little bit of time. Hopefully Scope will get his comms sorted, because we need spiritual guidance. Puppy, go for it.
Here's the first one.
Okay, Breitbart News, horror. A report has uncovered a Berlin government-backed pedophile network that actively sought to place homeless children with pedophiles. And then we've got another Breitbart article. Twitter allows pedophiles to discuss attraction to minors. In the past week alone, it was reported that Twitter has suspended journalist Andy Ngo for tweeting inconvenient facts about the purported... Just a moment. About the purported epidemic of transgender deaths and undercover journalism organization Project Veritas from running recruitment ads.
I've seen that videos. I've seen both videos.
And what was your assessment?
Well, Facebook is going to get into trouble because the lawyers are already looking into it. Facebook denies it. The document exists, but they have called in for questioning 8 employees to human resources, and I think 6 were put on leave or so. And the one who was on in the video of Project Veritas got a call on the phone, and his life was threatened. He didn't retract his statements.
Okay, and then there's a Fox News article that says bizarre Facebook survey asks users if they condone pedophilia. Facebook is under fire for publishing a stomach-churning survey that asked users whether pedophiles should be allowed to solicit sexual pictures from underage girls.
These people are sick.
It's wrong. It's all wrong. We're living in an upside-down world.
Yes.
Yes, very much so.
Disgusting.
Well, we got a few minutes on the clock. How should we spend our times?
You happy to discuss the protests and?
Oh shit! Yeah, that's right. Just a moment, Mark. Hey, Carmen, do you remember that article I got you to squirrel away for me? Could you drop that into Discord, please, my dear? I believe it's in your DMs. Do you need a little bit of time?
Did anyone notice see what happened when the police moved on the Trump supporters who were waiting to go to the rally, and they brought the curfew in unexpectedly, and the police told them about the curfew and that. They clarified it with the police. They packed up and left the area.
Right, and, so it's not completely insane.
So they had no issues, and they probably had a couple of issues about the order, but once they clarified things, and which was all done very peacefully and civilly, everyone packed up peacefully and civilly. Some of them had been there nearly a week, and they all left, and that doesn't seem to always happen in other parts of the USA with other protests or other public assemblies.
Seriously, I mean, these people are going to defund the police, which means it's Mad Max land. And the only people that are going to have guns are criminals if they take away the guns. It's just, I can't believe what's happening to America at the moment.
It's straight out of Mein Kampf, isn't it? Like the Nazi playbook is thing. Like it's all run by Soros, and he's running the Nazi playbook. What did they do in Germany when Adolf Hitler got into power? They defunded and debanded the police, and then they had the brown shirts.
Yeah, it's the same playbook. They do this over and over again, and I'd be curious to know what other countries have suffered this cookie-cutter sort of revolution kind of thing.
Yeah, probably Venezuela might be worth a dig.
Yeah, yep. Anyway, can we move on, Mark? Have you got anything else to add? Or okay. We've got a post here from Aussie Patriot. She was in the show earlier. If you're listening, good evening, my dear. And I'll just open this up. This is all about thanking General Flynn. General Flynn is an absolute champion. This comes from an Australian outfit called There's No Change Without Change. And okay, it's been updated to June the 19th, so it's today. And it talks about a meeting, a protest, okay? So the location for the first Follow the People's Flag meetup, Anzac Square War Memorial, 285 Ann Street, Brisbane City, Queensland, 4000. This Sunday, 21st of June at 12 noon. Come down and meet fellow patriots. We, the free people of Australia, are rising up in numbers by the day. Welcome to Follow the People's Flag. a concept a group of Aussie patriots and digital soldiers have come up with. We think it is in the best interest of all Australians, as free people, to know the history of our red ensign flag. People should understand where it came from, what it stands for, how it was removed from us, and why. There's more in this article about the flag. As a group of Aussie digital soldiers fighting in the information war currently underway, we wish to honour our diggers. Diggers is Australian slang for veterans, because they had to dig the trenches and so forth. Anyway, so we wish to honour our diggers and show support for a valuable ally, and that's America. And remember, America and Australia are best mates. We might not get on all the time. We might have different ideas about stuff. But don't forget, Australia has been in every damn war that you guys have started ever. Anyway, so the idea, I'll continue with this article. So the idea is to pass this historic and beautiful flag around significant locations throughout our vast and stunning land, thus allowing patriots from all areas to meet and take part in a group photo with this specific red ensign flag in honourable memory of the Australian diggers who served under it. We would also like to see other countries around the world research the history of their flag and their constitutions. As people of all creeds worldwide increasingly become aware of how their personal and national sovereignty has been violated, we hope to see this concept catch on. The next few months will be dedicated to a tour of Australia with a special ending. Once the Aussie tour is complete, we hope patriots from around the world will join us and follow the people's flag worldwide. Let's show the world our unity, friendship and patriotism. We are worldwide digital soldiers, and we are united around the world in opposition to tyranny. We wish to shine light on a system that has taken our sovereignty, corrupted our judicial systems, and removed power from the people. We would like to see a restoration of power back to the people under the Magna Carta and constitutional common law. Okay, the flag will be held by Aussie Patriot Q and will start its journey from a special location in Brisbane City at 12 p.m. noon on Sunday, the 21st of June 2020. If you're an Australian and you're within QE of Brisbane, the Twitter is at Aussie Patriot Q, and that's if you wish to participate. The link to this article will be dropped into both streams, and if you can make it, it'd be a great way to spend the day, actually. So the journey, the final leg of the journey around Australia will see the flag carried by a fourth-generation descendant of Patrick Carroll, who smuggled Peter Lalor out of the Eureka Stockade. And that's a story for another time, my American friends, the Eureka Stockade. Anyway, I'll continue with this. It was Peter Lalor who went on to join the Australian Parliament and played a key role in bringing the Constitution of 1900 to fruition, the last constitution to be voted on by the people and signed into law. So during 1900, I'll explain this, during 1900, we, as a people, signed and voted on a constitution. Not long after 1900, Australian diggers fought under the red ensign flag that goes along with the first constitution, which is the people's flag, ratified under that constitution. Anyone is welcome to join at Eureka, an anon that I actually know, hell of a guy, in his pilgrimage from North Queensland to the site of the Eureka Stockade, which is in a place called Ballarat, meeting up with Chook, arriving Sunday, November 29th, to commemorate the day the miners made the symbolic stand of burning their mining licenses. And I'm just going to jump towards the end here because it's got a whole bunch of information where I just don't have the time. Okay. So this is the Flags Act of 1953 declared the blue ensign to be the Australian national flag and the red ensign to be the flag of the Mercantile Marine. It has been claimed that this choice was made on the basis that the predominantly red version carried too many communist overtones for the government of the day to be legislated for as the chief national symbol, although no cabinet documents yet released. Basically, the red Australia flag is the real Australia flag that was our national symbol during the 1900 constitutional referendum. And so get out there, guys. If you're within Kui of Brisbane, it might be nice to turn up and meet some other free thinkers and actors, and remember that this people's flag, it's a thank you. Basically, it's just a thank you to Mr. General Flynn. Scope, are you standing by, sir?
He said he was going to delete the app and then try to re-download it and see if he could get back connected that way.
Okay, Carmen, we're out of time. Would you like to end the show with a quick prayer, please, Carmen? Just something just to remind us that when we face the day or when we go to bed or whatever it is we're doing, keep your head on a swivel, keep God in your heart.
Well, I'll finish with the best prayer I know. It's the one Jesus taught the disciples. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
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 Beautiful. I'm going to play out the song now. Carmen, Mark, Puppy, have you got anything that needs to be said before we end the show?
Thank you for having me, Dumpster, and everyone, and God bless and good night.
Thank you to everyone who listened today, and have an awesome and blessed weekend. See you next week, God willing.
Carmen, you want to say a quick goodbye?
Everybody have a wonderful weekend and a good week next week. And don't let the things around you disturb you to where you can't think of other things. Remember what's important. Jesus loves you, and so do I. See you later.
There are times in life when things get overwhelming, and I've gone as far and as long as I can go. And when I need the most, my failing friends astound me. Lord, you're there, you bring comfort to my soul. And I believe in you. Every word that I've heard, and I know it's true. And when I'm walking through the valleys, you will lead me through. 'Cause I believe you're with me, and I will trust in you. I must walk by faith and not by sight, you told me. and as rewards for those I know that seek your face. But I can use a glimpse right now, Lord, of your glory. And in my darkest hour, you give me strength. 'Cause I believe in you. Every word that I've heard, and I know it's true. And when I'm walking through the valleys, you will lead me through. 'Cause I believe you're with me, and I will trust in you. I raise my hand, sing hallelujah. For you are worthy of our praise. And when the storm comes, Lord, I am running to you. And I will glorify your name. Lord, you've walked my shoes, you felt my pain and suffering. And you took the nails for me while I was lost. And all the trials that I go through, Lord, they are nothing, no, compared to what you went through on that cross. I raise my hand, sing hallelujah. For you are worthy of all praise. And when the storm comes, Lord, I am running to you. I will glorify your name. 'Cause I believe in you. Every word that I've heard, and I know it's true. And when I'm walking through the valley, you will lead me through. 'Cause I believe you're with me, and I will trust in you. And when I'm walking through the valley, you will lead me through. 'Cause I believe you're with me, and I will trust in